Hi there, this is James and Alex again from ADHD Adult UK. We're going to talk to you today a little bit about working memory, which is a big issue for many people with ADHD. Alex, do you want to start? Because I can't remember it.
I knew you were going to do that, gag.
With a reasonable definition of what working memory is.
Okay, it's a hard question because actually people argue in psychology journals about what it means. But broadly speaking, if you think about studying for an exam and learning the things now for an exam a year from now, that's your long-term memory, obviously. It's you sleep on it, that's what dreams are. They put it in your long-term memory, away you go. And then there's cramming for an exam, right? A week from now, you get all this information, you cram it, it's in there, and then hopefully you remember as much as possible a week from now. But there's also that very short-term memory, isn't there? Like putting your pens and the things you need for the exam that morning in a bag, or remembering to go to the shop and buy cheese and bread and a pad. That's up here, isn't it? Okay, I've got to remember those three things. For me, that's what working memory is.
Wait, I've just got to stop you there. Who buys a pad? What type of pad are we talking about here?
A scribble pad.
Okay, fair enough. I was thinking panty liner for a minute there. Which
I see. No, scribble pad.
Okay, fine.
Obviously. So you need to go buy your bread and your bananas and your pad. That's normal. That's working memory. So if I ask you to, oh, James, can you make me a sandwich with cheese and ham and then a slice of pickle on top? You turn around and you've forgotten those three things. Yeah. That's ADHD working memory problems. So we all have that problem, James. How has working memory affected you?
I mean, Christ, I can even give you an example from today. So I was in a meeting today, a very important meeting. Alex and I both work at universities, by the way, and I was in an important meeting, and obviously I was paying no attention to the meeting because my inattentiveness isn't very good at the minute, and I was thinking about the fact that I've got to chair another meeting in a week's time, and I thought, oh God, it's really important that I put something in the agenda for that meeting. So while I was in the meeting today, I went into my computer, opened up the agenda for this next meeting next week, and I'd already forgotten what the thing was that I had to really importantly insert into the agenda for that meeting. So within 20 seconds, I'd gone from light bulb moment, here's something you've got to do, to what was that thing? And it just completely went.
I completely recognise it. The thing that bothers me the most about working memory, and I think most ADHD people I work with when I'm coaching people and just chatting on our ADHD Adult UK site, is people not liking me for interrupting impulsively. We're impulsive anyway, that's part of it. But the interruptions aren't just impulsivity. They're because with ADHD, if you don't say it immediately and interrupt, it's gone forever. You'll forget. And we all feel like that, and we all feel humiliated, and it's horrible. We have a tip. So my tip for that, before we come on to James's tip for his, my tip for that is this. This is my day planner diary. It's not a to-do list. It's not a done list. Those are great. Those work. It's certainly not something I ever have to look at again. It's when James is talking to me, and he does that a lot. If I have the urge to interrupt, I write down as he's talking, and I tell people I'm doing it, so it's not like I'm not distracted. I write down, oh, you could say that, you could say this, and then it's not gone. It's there forever. I can relax and breathe. And then what I do at the end is when they finish talking, tedious, is I go through and I say, do I actually need to say that? Or was it just an impulsive thought? Is it important? Which one of these things do I want to say? And what is of value? Best thing I ever invested in was £1 because, diaries are cheap in February.
Investment really is.
What's your top tip, James, for when you've got to remember that one thing and then 20 seconds later?
I was also going to say to use a pad, but this is a bigger pad which I didn't pay for because I stole it from the stationery company.
Oh, I get my pads from the supermarket.
Oh, fuck me. Right. No, my tip is there's lots of technology you can use. So I am not so good at this and I'm learning, but Microsoft OneNote, there are other apps available. You can set up so that you can have a number of different tabs for different elements of your life, a work tab, a home tab, a talking to boring people like Alex tab. And if you are not really a pen and paper person and you'd rather use your phone or a computer, then using that is a really good way of when you get that light bulb moment or you remember something that's really important, of putting it in a list form or somewhere where you can check it at any time very quickly and very easily. Having these apps on the phones are incredibly valuable because it means that if you haven't got your pad with you, everyone's got their phone with them at all times unless they're some kind of Luddite. Having a phone with an app on it, even if you just use the notes, means that when you get that thought, or you remember something that's important, pop it in there. At least a little bit like your pad, you know that if you do, as I often do, forget about it in 20 seconds, if it's something you've said, probably even quicker because you're so fundamentally boring, then at least you know it's written down somewhere and you can come back to it, and then you've captured that moment. And for me, using technology, I've got a friend, colleague Eric, he uses Asana, and I don't know what Asana is, but he's going to teach me later today, and I'm quite excited about that. But use technology to try and fill in the gaps in your ability to use your working memory.
You know, I have tried that. My problem with it is that by the time I've turned my phone on with my eye scanner, I've forgotten what it is I've got to write. So I keep this literally in my hand all the time.
I mean, I totally get that, but I'm literally never off my phone. So
yeah, and then that's
in a
it.
Face-to-face meeting, I'm so fundamentally unable to focus on the task at hand. I'm just sat there looking at my phone. So it's pretty much always. But I get that point. You're less able than me, obviously.
I also have a Stormtrooper pen that makes me very happy. My other top tip, James, the last one is don't be afraid to tell people.
Yeah,
it's hard to say, look, I have working memory problems, so I'm going to be writing this down.
This is something that I think one of our aims really at ADHD Adult UK is because we're not specialist psychiatrists, we can't,
or even generalist psychiatrists.
We can't diagnose people. We can help people get a diagnosis by guiding them towards resources. We can speak to people about the need to get a diagnosis, but really my hope is that we can help people learn to live with their ADHD. So it's not a kind of a badge of shame. It's something that they can use the good sides of, but also deal with the bad sides. So like you just said, actually telling people you've got ADHD and using that as a way to, if you like, phrase that inability to use working memory is important. So that same meeting this morning, somebody, I can't remember who, did a presentation and I can't remember what. And then immediately afterwards, a very important person said, right, thoughts on that presentation. And my immediate thought was, I didn't really watch it. What was it? Sorry again. So I typed in the chat at the meeting, ever so sorry, but my ADHD means I'm not very good at taking in information on the fly. But if you send me those slides, I'll comment on them later. And actually it got a really positive response. Somebody said, yeah, of course, James, we'll send those out to you. So being open and honest and saying that, listen, I really struggle with dealing with information you've just given me because of my ADHD is often a good way of making sure that people are aware of that. And therefore they're not going to think of you negatively if you can't magically come up with a great answer for something you've been asked 15 seconds ago.
I do think of you negatively though, just not for that.
All the time, obviously.
I also want people to comment to us on the social media on ADHD Adult UK with their coping strategies, because we're still learning all the time, and a lot of strategies come and go with ADHD. No shame involved.
I think everybody with ADHD is learning all the time, because we are all unable to use the same coping strategies forever, because you use it for a month or 6 weeks or 3 months, and then it goes. It's boring. You can't use it anymore.
Indeed. Right, I've got to go. I've got to go to the supermarket. No idea what for, though.
It's something about panty liners anyway. Right, thank you everybody for listening, or watching rather. This is James and Alex again. If you want to check out our social media channels, ADHD Adult UK, we'll see you there.
Ta-ra.